Welcome back to the OTC podcast. I'm Tarun Verma.
And I'm Abby Koenig.
And today we are going to be going over another Elite Daily article that says Leveling the Playing Field, 5 Expectations of Men That Should Be Nixed. Sort of a precursor before we get into this. I think role reversals and everything have come into an effect. There is no traditional woman. There's no traditional guy anymore. When you say what a guy should be like or what a woman should be like, there shouldn't be an answer anymore.
Yes.
It's just there's so much that's gone on with our sexes, such as I talk about it infamously to a large extent, how women are now getting themselves, and there's statistics on it too, are more educated than guys are now.
Mm-hmm.
I know so many girls that make far more money than guys do, and I don't see it as a problem. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, definitely. I think the breakdown, the gender breakdown has really dissolved when the word manscaping came into our lexicon.
Yeah. Manscaping.
Yes.
Yep, you're right about that one.
So I agree with you 100%.
Well, cool. Let's go through these points real quick, and then we'll tangent off like we always do into something cooler and better than the article.
Okay.
So number one, if he's not a breadwinner, there's something wrong with him.
So again, these are bad. These are points that are like null, right? Like
these are null and
anymore.
void. This is not good stuff
Yeah.
at all. So again, we were just talking about
Yes.
it. Women making more money. This is a very real thing. They even released a list last year, and I was even really proud of it, how the Fortune 500 CEOs, there's more women than ever. And the number is growing. The number of women executives out in the corporate world, right? We think of corporate world as these fat, bald men with their cigars and scotches, now being replaced with women in power suits with scotches and cigars, which I think is awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I think women have a ways to go, and I don't want to turn into like big feminist conversation, but they're definitely, women are not, on level with men yet.
Not yet, but they're getting there.
But it's moving in the right direction. I think it's definitely moving in the right direction. And saying that your boyfriend or your husband or whatever can be the stay-at-home dad or can be the one who makes a little less money and you make more money as a woman, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it's awesome.
I, from day one, have always said I don't mind being a house dad.
Okay.
I honestly think it would be cool to shoot the shit with my kids all day and not go to work. I think it's awesome.
I have a cousin who raised his daughter, and his wife was a nurse, and so she worked constantly. Nurses make a good living.
Oh, yeah.
And he was home with the daughter, and they have an amazing relationship that you don't often see with fathers and daughters, and it's just wonderful, and they're great friends, and the mother is, a happy mother, too, because she loves working, and I think it works out fine.
I think the breadwinner thing really comes down to when you're in the relationship, you have to do it to your own liking, right?
Sure.
So if the guy's like, I really love my job, I love it, you make concessions when you have kids and everything, right? Like, okay, well then cool, I'll stay at home for a little bit. Or if a guy's like, you know what, I know I may make more money, but I really want to spend more time with the kids, so can we go halvesies on this whole part-time bit?
Right.
And maybe this year I work full-time and then you work part-time and then we swap. So I think it's a really fluid thing now. And we shouldn't be so embarrassed about it at all. A lot of guys are still traditional with it. They're like, nah, you know what? I got to make more money than the woman. Otherwise, I don't feel like I have enough value. I think that's just stupid talk. It's stupid talk.
I think so too. And I think from a woman's perspective, like demanding that your husband be the one who brings home the bacon, if you are in a better place to do that and you want to do it, then do it. What's the problem?
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
So the number 2, if he's not ripped, women don't want. I mean, if I could show you a picture of my husband, I would say I agree with this. I mean, I don't agree. I don't even really get,
Media. This is just media.
It's totally
just media in your head. It's just when you see Calvin Klein ads and stuff, and you see these half-naked men, you tend to think, it hits me all the time. I'm a huge workout buff, but I am just naturally a puffy person. Physiologically, I'm just a puffy person. I cannot be the six-pack ripped abs guy, even though I protein shake up, I work out, I control calories. I just can't be. But even then, it's in my head, too, that's who I want to be like. That's just media.
Yeah.
Just media BS in your head.
And there's such a stigma, like, with women loving their bodies now. Like, there's like, take all your makeup off and take pictures of yourself without makeup and in your underwear, and it's okay that you have, not a perfect body. And I think that's amazing. But it's such a woman thing. Like, they don't really talk about it with guys. Like, why don't they have guys, who make a guy
look like
love
Louis C.K.
Yeah,
and be
loving his body,
Yeah.
be appreciated. It's it's the stigma that I think is sort of one-sided. That you don't have to be a ripped guy to be an attractive person.
No, not necessarily. But if you dig into the psychology of it a little bit, I do understand why it's happening. So historically, let's go back in time. Men, again, were these fat guys, positions of power, money, wealth. So women had to use their looks were part of the package, right? Men didn't need to be sexy because it was like, hey, we make more money, we do this. But in today's day and age, when honestly, I know probably more women than guys I know make more money. So now women are in positions of power where if they wanted to be, they could be the fat slags and really they can call the shots because guess what? They make more money. So it's like, when it comes to a guy, your looks are a little bit more important. I've noticed that a lot. Guys are really focusing on getting in shape and looking better because their worth isn't where it is traditionally anymore. They may not make the good money that they used to. So I think that reversal has happened. I think that's a really cool thing when you really dig down into the psychology of it. That's kind of why it's happening.
So you're saying like you need to find a way to attract a woman, and if you can't attract her with your dollar bills,
then it's got to be with your abs. That's kind of how it's working. I guess
I could see that being the case. I think I've always thought it was really fascinating. Out of all like the animal species, mostly the male animal has to do the attracting to the women. Yeah. Like if you think about like a peacock, those really pretty peacocks, those are the male peacocks. The female peacocks are really ugly and like haggard looking birds. But like human beings, like it seems like for decades and decades and decades, it's like the woman has to be the one to attract the male.
Traditionally, your worth has been associated with it, right? A man's looks were never, it was always a perk. If the man was a good looking guy and he had a good job and was stable, it was a plus, right? It was like, oh, this is great. Because even an ugly guy with a personality could go really far if he was also stable and had a good job. And that was really considered the full package. But now when you have women in positions of power, they're like, who cares what I look like? I'm the one who's got the stability, the power, the prestige, and you may not have all these things. Now all of a sudden guys we're being emasculated all over the place, really.
I think that's probably true.
And hence why these gyms and the steroids and all those have kicked in, because now that's part of our self-worth. A man's self-worth was never, how many people back in the Greek era worked out? They just were perfectly okay, their togas and their man tits hanging out. They were honestly cool with that. That was doable, right?
Right.
Not everyone looked like 300.
Yes, no. I don't think anyone looked like 300.
So going to the next point, he needs to be manly to attract women and be accepted by his bros.
Yes. I mean, you tell me. Do you think that's true? I don't think that's...
I'm kind of a girly guy.
Yeah, I have always been attracted to girly guys
and nerds and whatnot. I think these, they used to say this back in the day, and I didn't believe it in high school because I used to look up to the jocks and all of them, right? They used to say the nerds are the ones that are going to outdo the jocks.
Yes.
And at the time, you're like, I don't care, right? You're sitting in your suspenders and your glasses, you're like, I don't care. They got the girls. And it's like, well, who has them now? When you kind of, my high school reunion actually is coming up this year.
Oh, that's exciting.
It's been 10 years. And so now when I look on Facebook and I'm like, whoa, that jock, what happened to him? He totally lost himself. He's here. He's doing this. Wow. Whoa. And then the nerds I see, they're like off in Africa with some foreign aid building a multinational whatever hospital. I'm like, wow, that nerd went really far.
I'm sure Bill Gates went to his high school reunion and laughed at everyone's face and then threw money at them and left.
This is nothing to me.
He probably just burned it in front of them and left, actually.
Yeah, and so I think it's awesome that with these alternate personalities we have now, we got the emo people, right? And the Metro, right? This has been a huge thing that we had. We had the rise of the Metro Man and the manscaping and all that. There is no proper definition of a man anymore. He's not Mr. Potatoes and steak.
No.
What that equals now is a whole lot of heart disease and an early death.
Yes, yes. And I almost think like more so when you think about like the guys that are considered attractive, highly attractive in, celebrities or whatever, they're not like manly men at all. I mean, if you think about some of these guys, they're very, skinny sort of. I'm trying to think of a good example, but all the examples I'm thinking of are really manly men. Like,
well, like Ryan Gosling,
I was
right?
just thinking Ryan Gosling. I mean, he's beefed up for a couple parts, but he's not a big dude. I mean, he's pretty. He's like
a pretty good, and he doesn't play like Ray Liotta gangster roles with women all over him and stuff.
No.
You know, he plays the sensitive emo guy who happens to kill couple people in the movie.
I mean, he's in pretty good shape.
He's in really good shape. And another thing, right? Not mean potatoes guy. He's a vegan.
Yes.
He's a vegan. I didn't know that. I'm over here.
He's very sensitive.
Eating chicken and beef like it's nothing, thinking this is what my diet should be so I can have muscles. And it's like, this guy's doing it as a vegan.
Yeah.
Looks a million times better than me on no meat.
He's sensitive to animals' feelings as well as his own.
He's that too. Okay, so he is the perfect guy to talk about in that respect.
He's the perfect guy in general.
Yeah, in general, he's the perfect guy. So that's very true. So there is no definition anymore, those traditional definitions, so we have to let that thing go too.
Yeah.
I think I know this is written on behalf of, from a woman's perspective, but we can turn it the other way around.
Yeah.
Same thing for a woman. We can't do that either. Just because a girl acts dainty and ha 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 ha, that's not right. I'm never love that. I like the goofy types, the ones who can make fun of themselves, right? Those are great personality types, and you have to let the traditional models go.
Right. So you're more like a Jennifer Lawrence than a Kate Upton.
Yes. So again,
even though Jennifer Lawrence is pretty good looking. She's
pretty good looking, but again, the personality is just so great. I know the guys. I have a lot of guys who are like they go after the Kate Uptons, right? Because that's our society's males are bred to think like that. That's what you want. When they get them, 6 months later, they're bored as hell. They're like, this sucks. She doesn't know anything about football. She doesn't know anything about basketball. She doesn't know anything about anything. She's just really hot and loves taking pictures of herself and loves to doll up and have me take her out on the weekends. I was like, well, that's cool. But my girlfriend totally wanted to go to the Rockets game, and we went. It was so much fun. And then she wanted to go to the brewery on Saturday, and we did the whole tour. And he's like, oh my God, I wish she'd go on a brewery tour with me. And I'm like, gotta let go of those things, because guess what? The best personalities are everything.
Yeah.
And the traditional model of like girls being dainty and kind of, even the chase game actually, when we talk about that, right? So we're talking about how males have traditionally go after the women.
Right.
That kind of has gone away too. I almost appreciate it when a girl comes up to me and just talks to me.
I mean, I think there's nothing wrong with that. I asked out one guy in my entire life. I got the balls to do it, and that was my husband.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
And he said he would have never asked me out.
Exactly. Why shouldn't you? There shouldn't be the thing where it's like 8th grade dance where all the guys are on one side and the girls are on one side, and the guy with the biggest balls has the courage to go up to the girl and go across the thing. That should be gone. We need to abolish all those things. That seems stupid. Like kind of like what is it called? The Sadie
Hawkins dance. Yeah. Yes.
Right.
Girls
like,
ask guys. It's
the world should be that all the time.
Yes, a daily Sadie Hawkins dance. I agree with that. So how about number 4? What do you think about that? Because we don't even have to get into numbers here. But if he hasn't slept with a lot of women, he's a loser.
Well, I turn this right back around on you, right? So you tell me. So I know that in my singledom, women tend to like a guy who's pursuing other women, who other women are flocking to, right? I don't know what's that concept called? Or
yeah,
whatever.
like if you're taken, there's something
a more
good
hotter
about
commodity or something, right? It's like the car in the corner of the dealership. If no one's around it, you're like, well, nobody wants it, so I don't want it either.
Right.
Same sort of thing. I don't think that applies. Some of the best women, some of the best guys that some of my female friends have dated were all guys that were in the background.
Yeah.
They weren't the alpha males that were out on the prowl. They were the nice guys that didn't have the courage to go say hi to the girl. Those ended up being the best boyfriends.
I agree. I mean, again, I married that guy, and I think he's awesome. And we don't talk about who we are each other's firsts.
Right.
That's what we tell each other.
Well,
but
we can take the sex thing out of it, right? It's just more attention. So if this male or this female's getting, I know that I get kind of turned off. When I see a bunch of guys all over one particular girl, I'm like, again, I'm a nice guy, so I think to myself, well, screw it. She's already probably heard all the worst lines in the world. I don't want to harass her any more than she's already been harassed that night. And I'm not nearly as good looking as those guys, so screw it. why even bother with that?
Yeah.
So
I definitely have dated a couple guys who I would consider to be the guys who slept with a lot of other girls, and they were the good-looking guys, and they always were the worst. I mean, they were always the worst people.
Because they have that notch mentality, that belt notch mentality.
Yes, could not give a crap about you.
Yeah, those are the worst guys to be with, and so
I agree with. So how about number 5? If he likes girl books or chick flicks, he's either gay or weird.
I think gay or weird are the new in. It's the new black right now.
Yes, I guess so. I don't think this is true at all. I mean, it's hard to... I really don't think this is true. I can't even fathom saying, like, oh, you're so weird because you like
chick
the
flicks.
Notebook, or you're weird because you read Harry Potter books, or whatever it may be. I
think that's color. That's color to someone's personality, right?
Yeah.
I love chick flicks personally. Love Actually, one of my favorite movies all the time. Realistic love depicted really well with a little hint of magic.
Yeah.
Loved it.
Yeah.
Can't hate on that movie, ever.
Yeah, totally. I don't know why anybody would think, like, oh, it's a bad thing. What girl doesn't want a boyfriend to sit on a couch with her and eat popcorn and watch
a chick flick?
Yeah. Like, that's all we want in life, really.
That's all we want.
Please sit and watch Sex in the City with us for the 100th time and talk about Carrie's shoes. Like, you are the greatest guy ever.
Now, the gay or the weird thing, everything, like the melting pot we've talked about, everything's muddled, right? Guys, I know really manly men who are so particular about shoes and go shoe shopping now, and it's no longer a woman's thing. Although you guys definitely have it for a very, very long time. Shoes. I'm a shoe guy, but my obsession goes nowhere near even the least, most tamest and mildest shoe aficionado that's a woman.
Yes.
You guys are on a whole nother level.
That's a whole conversation we could have about shoes. I mean, I will say this. There have definitely been times where I have pointed out guys that have been like, you know what?
It's a bit much.
You're bleaching your tips. That's weird. You know, like, you really don't, I don't want to use the word weird because now I think I'm playing into the stereotype.
The stereotype, right.
But I've definitely seen guys go over the top with their clothing and their hair and all of that. And to me, I think that's not a guy that I would be attracted to. But that's not a person I'm attracted to.
Exactly. That's what I was about to say.
Yeah.
I was like, I look at people like that too and I go, wow, that's a bit much, whether it's a guy or a girl. But I'm like, you know what? There's probably someone out there who digs that. Who loves, who balls the walls to it, who just love it. And that's why I'm like, oh, well, that's good. Go you.
Yeah.
I remember going to Montreal several years ago. And I didn't know this much about Montreal. It was my first time going to Canada. I was in Toronto. And Toronto is just like any other city, big metropolitan. And we went there. And I've never seen a more liberal city in my life. Mm-hmm. It was so cool. And then this was probably like circa 2008. So again, I think now with like homosexuality being so out in the open, people weren't as out there with their dressing and all that.
Okay.
Back then, so to see it in the city was crazy. I was walking by. There was a guy in a bright pink shirt and then the cut went all the way down, so you could see his pecs and everything, and his hair was nicely coiffed, and you could tell that he was gay, but he was just flaunting it, and I was like, wow. He's just owning it, and that's awesome. He doesn't care. He doesn't care about what people think about him, and then the whole city was like that. It was just one after another. People wearing all kinds of exotic stuff, hairstyles everywhere, girls, guys, and they're just owning it. They don't care.
That's awesome, yeah.
And I was like, here's this city that just celebrates this individuality, and it was just awesome to see, because, the problem with living in these bigger cities like Houston and whatnot, everyone tends to kind of look cookie cutter at some point,
right? Yeah, you
start
to find that.
Yeah, unless you go to, say, like Montrose around here, where you get the personality and everything. And Austin pretty much as a whole just rejects the cookie cutters.
Yeah.
But any other city, when I lived up in Dallas, same thing. Everybody was a cookie cutter. Everyone's wearing the same clothes, looking the same. And it gets old.
Yeah.
It gets really old. And that's the thing. You break this, it comes from the stigma, the social stigma and the social media stuff.
Doesn't make any sense. It's who you are.
Exactly. And I think you gravitate to the people who you identify with anyway, right? So if someone's wearing more exotic stuff than you normally like, there's someone out there who's going to love it.
Oh, yeah, totally. I had a girlfriend who dated a guy for a really long time, and he was very, I don't know, I guess the word is metro, and they used to share, like, face masks and do that kind of stuff together and, like, Biore pore strips and stuff like that.
Word.
And that was
no
they
judgy.
Loved it. They
no
loved
judgy.
It. Yeah.
No judgy.
I
That's
think he
awesome.
turned out to be gay, but
He did.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Signs were there.
Yeah.
That's great. But then
No, they loved doing it together.
But isn't that an awesome thing at the same time? Because if you have these shared, that's just more shared interests you have. If a guy loves shopping, guess what? That's awesome.
Yeah.
Go shopping together.
Yeah. No, it's awesome.
More the merrier.
Yeah, and if it's watching chick flicks, or if it's or if it's going to a basketball game, whatever you do together and you like each other for it, more power.
Bingo. And that's the best way to end this podcast. We'll see you guys next time on OTC.